It was my 26th birthday, but you wouldn't know it. My parents threw a graduation party for my sister instead. By the end of the night, one person was in cuffs, and it wasn't who you'd think. When I walked into the backyard, I stopped cold. Blue and gold banners stretched across the fence. Congrats, Sophie. Balloons floated over the food table, every one of them shaped like graduation caps. The cake in the center had her name written in big, perfect icing letters. Not a single candle in sight. I forced a smile as relatives hugged me, but every hello was followed by, "We're so proud of Sophie." No one said a word about me turning 21. Maya found me near the drinks table, eyes wide like she'd walked into a bad sitcom. "They didn't even put your name on the cake?" she muttered, glancing around. "Apparently it's not my day," I said, keeping my voice low. We stood side by side while Sophie, in her glittery white dress, clinked a spoon against her glass. "Thanks so much, everyone, for coming to celebrate," she said, flashing me a sweet but not sweet smile. "And of course, thanks to my big sister for letting me share her day. I mean, I know 21 is special, but this is my graduation, so..." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Maya's jaw dropped. I just stared at my plastic cup, letting the words slide over me like oil. Across the yard, Tyler was already working his way through a beer. He stood with a group of guys, laughing too loudly, almost knocking over a folding chair. Every time Sophie looked at him, he raised his bottle like it was some inside joke. My parents floated around, chatting with neighbors and passing trays of food. When I tried to catch my mom's eye, she waved but didn't stop. I could feel the space between us stretching tighter, like an elastic band about to snap. Maya leaned in again. "She's loving this. You can tell." I was about to answer when I caught Sophie's voice from behind the hedge. She was talking to one of her friends, her tone quick and low. "Don't worry," she whispered. "The plan's for later." My shoulders tensed. Her friend giggled. I couldn't see their faces, but I knew that sound. Sophie's smug, "I've got something up my sleeve" tone. I didn't know what the plan was, but the way she said it made my stomach twist. I turned back toward the party, forcing my expression neutral, even though my mind was already racing. Something was coming. I could feel it. I told myself I wasn't going to let Sophie ruin everything. If my family wanted to pretend my birthday didn't exist, fine. I still had my friends, and I was going to enjoy the night with Maya. And I found a corner of the yard near the fence where the music wasn't too loud. A couple of my friends from college were there, and we started talking about classes, road trips, and random stuff just to keep the mood light. I laughed more than I felt like laughing, hoping it would feel real eventually. But Sophie kept drifting over like she was checking up on. First, she came to borrow one of my friends for a photo, making sure the photographer got shots of her in the center of every frame. Then she wandered back, wine glass in hand, asking loud questions about my old ex-boyfriend, the one she knew I hated talking about. Tyler wasn't any better. He'd stumble past us with his beer, making little comments under his breath, just loud enough for me to catch words like jealous and uptight. Each time, he'd smirk, and Sophie would pretend not to notice. I was mid-sentence with Maya when Sophie reappeared, tilting her glass toward me. "Oh my God, Em, your dress is so cute," she said, leaning closer. The next second, I felt something cold splash down the front of me. Deep red wine bloomed across the pale fabric like a wound. Sophie gasped dramatically, covering her mouth. "Oh no, I'm so clumsy. Are you serious?" I snapped, stepping back. Maya's eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb, Sophie. You did that on purpose." Gasps came from the people nearby. Sophie's face shifted instantly, big eyes, soft voice. "Why would you even say that? It was an accident." Before I could answer, my mom appeared, drawn by the noise. "What is going on here?" "She spilled wine all over me," I said, pointing at Sophie. "It was an accident," Sophie said again, almost pouting. "Emma, just calm down," my mom sighed. "You're making a scene." I laughed without humor. "I'm making a scene? Let's not ruin the night," my dad added from behind her. His voice was flat, like this was just another small annoyance. Sophie's lips curled into the tiniest smirk, so quick I almost missed it. Maya saw it too, shaking her head. Tyler, standing a few feet away, took the moment to join in. "Oh, come on, Em," he called out. "It's not like that dress was anything special anyway." Laughter broke out from a couple of his friends. My ears burned. I couldn't stand there another second. I turned and walked toward the side of the yard, pushing through a group near the cooler. The cool air on the front lawn felt different from the noisy backyard. I took a deep breath, trying to stop my hands from shaking. I could hear the muffled music and laughter from behind the fence, but out here, it was easier to think. That's when I saw them. Across the yard, near the sliding glass door, Sophie was slipping inside the house. Tyler followed close behind her, still carrying his beer. She glanced over her shoulder once, like she was checking to make sure no one was watching, but she didn't see me in the shadows. Something about the way they moved, quick, quiet, in sync, set off an alarm in my head. This wasn't just two people going inside for a drink or to use the bathroom. There was an edge to it, a purpose. I stayed still, watching the glass door slide shut behind them. My wine-stained dress clung to me in the night air, but all I could think about was where they were going and why. The wine on my dress was starting to feel sticky and cold. I finally decided I'd had enough of standing outside, so I slipped into the house through the side door. The noise from the party faded a little, replaced by the low hum of the fridge and the faint thump of music coming from the backyard speakers. I headed toward the stairs, planning to grab something clean from my closet. Halfway up, I paused. There was a faint sound above me, a muffled shuffle, then a quiet clink of something metal. It wasn't the usual creak of the old house. It was sharper, like a drawer being pulled open. I moved slowly, my bare feet silent on the carpet. As I reached the top, I could hear whispers coming from the end of the hallway. My door was open, just a sliver, and the light was on inside. I pushed it open the rest of the way, and my stomach dropped. Sophie was standing at my desk, rifling through the top drawer. Tyler was crouched near my dresser, his hands inside my jewelry box. I could see little bits of metal catching the light, bracelets, earrings, the chain I used to wear every day. "What the hell are you doing?" My voice came out sharper than I meant. Sophie straightened immediately, putting on a wide-eyed look. "Oh, hey! I was just looking for a phone charger. In my locked desk drawer?" I stepped forward, glancing at Tyler. He froze, his hand still inside the jewelry box. "It wasn't locked," Sophie said quickly, like she had the answer ready. "I don't keep chargers in there, Sophie." My heart was pounding, and my hands were starting to shake. At that moment, Maya appeared in the doorway behind me. She took one look at the scene, then at Tyler. "Are you seriously going through her stuff?" Tyler pulled his hand out of the box, and that's when I saw it, my grandmother's gold necklace dangling from his fingers. It was delicate, with a tiny heart-shaped locket. My grandmother had given it to me for my 16th birthday, and I'd barely worn it since she passed away. "Give me that," I said, stepping forward. Tyler hesitated, then held it up like he was inspecting it. "Nice necklace," he said with a smirk. Maya's voice was sharp. "That's not yours. Put it back." Sophie moved between us, her hands raised like she was calming a fight. "Whoa, everyone just relax. We saw it sitting out and didn't want it to get lost. People are all over the house tonight. We were just keeping it safe for you." I stared at her. "You were keeping it safe by taking it out of my jewelry box? Where it's been safe for years." "You left it out," she insisted. "I didn't want it to get damaged. You know how clumsy people get at parties." "It was in the box, Sophie," I said, my voice rising. Tyler chuckled under his breath, and that little sound made me want to scream. Maya crossed her arms. "You're unbelievable. You're caught red-handed and you're still lying." "I'm not lying," Sophie said, her tone turning sharp. "I'm trying to help." "God, Emma, you always think the worst of me. Maybe if you weren't so paranoid." "Paranoid?" I cut in. "I walk into my room to find you and your boyfriend going through my drawers, and I'm paranoid?" Sophie rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We were trying to do you a favor." I glanced at Maya, who looked like she was 1 second away from grabbing the necklace herself. My pulse thudded in my ears. I knew this wasn't about a charger or safety or whatever excuse Sophie wanted to spin. Something about the way they'd moved, the way they were working together, it felt deliberate. I marched out of my room with Maya right behind me. My parents were in the kitchen, laughing with a couple of neighbors over a plate of appetizers. The second my mom saw my face, her smile faded. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady but firm. Lisa set down her drink. "What's wrong now?" I didn't waste time. I just caught Sophie and Tyler in my room, going through my desk and jewelry box. Tyler had Grandma's necklace in his hand. My mom's expression barely changed. "Emma, I'm sure there's an explanation." "There is," I said sharply. "They were taking my stuff." Before she could respond, Aunt Carol, who was standing nearby, stepped forward. "This isn't the first time, Lisa. Remember when Sophie got caught at the mall 2 years ago? You brushed that off too." "That was different," my mom said quickly. "She was a teenager then. And now she's what, magically trustworthy?" Aunt Carol shot back. My dad glanced between us, clearly uncomfortable. "Let's not start a fight in front of guests." "This isn't a fight," I said. "It's me telling you that your younger daughter and her boyfriend were stealing from me." Sophie suddenly appeared in the doorway, eyes wide and shiny with tears. "Wow, really, Emma? You're telling everyone I'm a thief on my graduation day." Her voice cracked perfectly, like she'd rehearsed it. "You were in my room," I said. "You had my necklace." She sniffled, looking at my parents. "I was keeping it safe. People are walking all over the house tonight. I didn't want it to get broken or lost. But Emma can't stand it when I try to help her." "That's not what happened," I said. Sophie turned to my mom, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She's always been like this. She hates when I get attention. She hates when I do well at anything." I can't even celebrate without her making it about herself. That's not true. I snapped, my chest tightening. Lisa put a hand on Sophie's shoulder. Emma, you are overreacting. You've been in a mood all night. Maybe you misunderstood what you saw. I didn't misunderstand, I said. I walked in. I saw it. Maya saw it too. Aunt Carol spoke up again. Lisa, you can't keep ignoring this. Sophie knows she can get away with anything because you'll defend her no matter what. That's enough, Carol, my mom said, her voice hardening. Sophie took a shaky breath, like she was trying to hold back sobs. I just wanted to make sure nothing bad happened to her necklace. But she twists everything I do into something ugly. It's exhausting. My dad finally spoke. Emma, just apologize so we can move on and enjoy the rest of the night. I stared at him, stunned. Apologize? For catching them in my room? Just to keep the peace, he said, avoiding my eyes. My mom nodded. This is supposed to be a happy night. Say you're sorry, and we can put this behind us. I looked at Sophie. Her tears had slowed, and she was watching me with that same little smirk I'd seen earlier, like she already knew how this would end. My parents were standing beside her, not me. And in that moment, I realized they weren't going to believe me, no matter what I said. I refused to apologize. The second the words left my mouth, the room felt colder. No one said anything for a moment, but I could feel the tension pressing in. My parents looked at me like I'd just ruined everything. Sophie stood nearby, watching me with that fake hurt expression she had mastered over the year. Maya stayed at my side, keeping her eyes on Sophie and Tyler. She didn't trust them, and I could tell she was ready for whatever came next. Tyler wandered over, holding a half-empty beer, wearing a smirk that made my skin crawl. He looked me up and down before speaking, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. So, how's that long-distance guy of yours? Still pretending he's faithful while you sit around waiting? Bet he's having more fun without you. Something in me snapped. I stepped forward, grabbed the beer straight out of his hand, and flung it through the open door. The bottle hit the grass with a dull thud, beer spilling out in a foamy stream. Tyler's grin disappeared instantly. What's your problem? He barked, stepping toward me. You don't get to talk about him, I said, my voice sharp. Without warning, he shoved me hard in the shoulders. I stumbled back into the counter, the edge digging into my hip. Maya was on him in an instant, pulling his arm and pushing him away from me. Don't touch her, she shouted. The room erupted into chaos. Voices overlapped. My mom yelling at me, someone else telling Tyler to calm down. From the other room, I heard a man's voice shout, "Call the police," but I couldn't see who had said it. Tyler tried to lunge forward again, but two guests stepped in, holding him back. Sophie rushed to his side, grabbing his arm like she was shielding him. She's lost it, Sophie cried, her voice carrying over the noise. Emma's been acting weird all night, and now she just attacked Tyler out of nowhere. That's a lie. I yelled, but no one seemed to care. Sophie turned toward the nearest group of people, tears forming in her eyes. She's jealous, she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. She can't stand to see us happy. She's been looking for a reason to ruin tonight. I could feel the eyes on me, the judgment, the whispered comments between guests. A few people exchanged uneasy glances and began moving toward the door. Maya grabbed my arm and pulled me slightly back. Don't give them anything else to twist, she murmured, her tone low and firm. In the distance, faint sirens began to rise, cutting through the noise of the party. They grew louder with each passing second, and the room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for whatever was going to happen next. Officer Mark Reynolds came in through the sliding door. The red and blue lights from outside flashed across the room. He raised his voice just enough to be heard. Everyone, step back and give some space. People moved away, and he stood between us. His eyes went from me to Sophie, then to Tyler. Okay, he said. Tell me what happened. One person at a time. Sophie quickly stepped forward before I could speak. Her voice shook, and tears ran down her face. Officer, she attacked me. She's been upset all night, and then she went after Tyler. I don't know why. I opened my mouth to speak, but Maya stepped in. She stood beside me and held up her phone. That's not true. I recorded everything. You should watch this. The officer nodded and took the phone from her. The room went quiet while the video played. It showed Tyler shoving me into the counter, and then Maya pulling him away. When it ended, Officer Reynolds looked at Sophie. Doesn't look like she attacked you. Sophie's face went stiff, then she looked down. I guess I was wrong, she said softly. The officer turned to Tyler. Why did you put your hands on her? Tyler spoke loudly. She threw my drink at me. What was I supposed to do? That's not a reason to shove someone, the officer said. Tyler pointed at me. She's been causing trouble all night. She's just jealous. The officer cut him off. I'm not asking about that. I'm asking why you thought it was okay to touch her like that. Tyler's jaw tightened. Because she deserved it. The officer's tone got a little firmer. That's not the answer you should be giving right now. Tyler gave a short laugh with no humor. So now I'm the bad guy? I'm here to figure out what happened, the officer said. You're making it harder. Tyler looked away, muttering something under his breath. The officer handed Maya her phone back. No one is leaving until I speak to everyone, he said. The room stayed tense, with guests whispering in the background. The officer told Tyler to step away from the counter. His voice was steady, but there was no room for argument. Tyler rolled his eyes, but he moved. Another officer had come in from outside and walked over to stand near him. Hands out of your pockets, the second officer said. Tyler sighed loudly and pulled them out. The officer glanced at him for a second, then patted down his jean. When his hand reached the front pocket, he stopped and pulled something out. It was my necklace. The gold chain dangled in the air, the tiny heart locket catching the light. That's mine, I said immediately. Tyler's face tightened. I don't know how that got there, he muttered. Before the officer could respond, Sophie rushed in. Oh, wait. I gave it to him earlier. I found it in the other room and thought it would be safer with him. People are walking all over the house tonight. The first officer turned his head toward her. You gave your sister's necklace to your boyfriend to keep safe? Yes, Sophie said quickly, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Emma leaves her stuff lying around. I didn't want it to get broken or stolen. The officer didn't blink. So your plan to keep it safe was to hand it to someone who's been drinking all night. Sophie hesitated, then nodded slowly. Well, yes. He's careful. Tyler smirked for half a second, but it disappeared when the second officer said, Turn around. What? You're kidding me, Tyler said, stepping back. You're being placed under arrest for assault, the officer said, taking out the handcuffs. And theft. That's not theft, Sophie yelled. I told you I gave it to him. The officer didn't answer. He guided Tyler's hands behind his back and locked the cuffs in place. This is ridiculous, Tyler shouted, twisting his shoulders. You're all acting like I broke into a bank or something. Sophie ran up to the first officer. You can't do this. He didn't steal anything. She pointed straight at me. She's lying to make us look bad. The officer kept his voice calm. Miss, step back. I'm not stepping back, Sophie shouted, her voice going high and sharp. You're arresting the wrong person. Emma's the problem, not Tyler. Guests had started to gather near the kitchen doorway, watching everything unfold. Sophie spun toward them, her hair flying over her shoulder. You all saw it. She's been acting crazy since the party started. The first officer stepped in front of her. If you keep yelling, you're going to make this harder on yourself. I don't care, she screamed. This is my graduation and you're ruining it. The sound of her voice echoed through the house, but the only movement came from the officer leading Tyler toward the door, the handcuffs glinting in the flashing lights outside. People started talking in low voices, glancing toward the door. A few moved toward the exit, coats in hand, trying not to draw attention. The sound of the latch clicking was soft but clear each time someone stepped outside. My mother turned toward me, her expression sharp. You planned all of this, she said, her tone cold. You wanted to embarrass your sister in front of everyone. Before I could respond, Carol stepped closer, her voice firm. That's enough. You've ignored how she treats others for far too long. Tonight just shows what's been happening all along. My mother's head snapped toward her. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly, Carol replied without raising her voice. You choose to believe the best about her, no matter what she does. That's not love, that's denial. A tense silence settled over the room. My sister was leaning on the counter, her arms crossed. When I looked at her, she glared back for a brief moment, then turned away sharply. Her steps were quick and heavy as she left the kitchen, disappearing down the hallway. The slam of a door echoed a moment later. My mother followed her, muttering something under her breath. The tension in the air seemed to thicken, making the room feel smaller. Carol stayed near me, her eyes steady. Don't take this on yourself, she said. This isn't your fault. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see my friend beside me. You handled it the way you had to, she said softly. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I let out a slow breath, the weight of the night pressing down on me. The voices outside grew faint as more people drifted away. The house felt different now, quieter but not peaceful. Carol gave me a small nod before walking toward the living room. My friend stayed at my side, not saying anything more, just standing there with me as the last of the footsteps faded. News came a few days later. Tyler would face charges for what happened that night. The police had enough proof, even without help from my sister. She didn't answer their questions, didn't sign any statements, didn't show up when they asked. At home, things grew worse. Conversations with my parents turned short and tense. They didn't ask how I felt, and I stopped trying to explain. Meals were quiet, with only the sound of silverware on plates. Even small talk felt like walking on glass. Carol called often, checking in. Sometimes it was just a few minutes, sometimes longer. She'd ask if I was eating enough, if I'd gotten any sleep, if the tension had eased. One evening, she said, "If it gets too hard there, you can come stay with me." No questions, no judgment. Her voice was steady, not pitying, and it made the knot in my chest loosen for the first time all week. Maya stayed close, texting during the day and stopping by when she could. One afternoon, she sat across from me at the cafe near campus. She leaned in, speaking quietly but with a spark in her eyes. "You should write about what happened. People need to hear it." I frowned. Who would even care? "Trust me," she said. "There's a whole world online where stories like yours matter. You could help someone else going through the same thing." I thought about it the rest of the day. Not just telling friends, but telling strangers, letting them see the whole thing for what it was. A way to get it out, maybe even find people who'd understand without taking sides for the wrong reasons. The idea stayed with me, even as the house around me felt colder with each passing day. Months passed before I heard anything worth paying attention to. Then word reached me. My sister was planning a big get-together at the house. Mom and Dad would be gone that weekend, and she wanted to make it huge. Loud music, plenty of booze, and whatever else people decided to bring. I knew enough about her friends to guess it wouldn't be just beer in red cups. I sat with that information for a day, not rushing. I wasn't going to yell, confront, or warn. This time, I wanted the truth to come out in a way no one could spin against me. That evening, I opened my laptop and searched for the local police tip line. My message was short, with no names, just the facts. The address, the time, the kind of things that would be there. Every word I wrote was true. I didn't add anything extra, didn't need to. When the night came, I didn't go anywhere near the house. Instead, I met Maya for coffee. We sat in the corner by the window, talking about nothing important, but both of us knew why I'd asked her to hang out. My phone stayed on the table, screen lighting up with occasional updates from neighbors who still liked to gossip. About an hour in, the first text came. Flashing lights outside, officers going in, people running through the yard. 10 minutes later, cars being searched, music cut, shouting inside. I sipped my drink and didn't say much, just nodded while Maya smirked into her cup. By the time the messages stopped, I knew it was over. The next morning, I heard she'd been caught with more than just alcohol in the house. There were fines, mandatory classes, and the kind of record that didn't go away overnight. For once, my parents didn't defend her. They didn't yell at me either. They just looked tired. The excuses they'd always used for her weren't coming so easily now. A small part of me thought they might finally be seeing her for who she was. That night, I sat at my desk and opened the post I'd been working on for. The title was simple. The story was every detail from start to finish. The birthday, the fight, the shove, the necklace, the police, and finally, the party that ended it all. I ended with one line. They stole my birthday. I stole their illusions about her. Then I hit publish. What would you have done if your own family celebrated your sister on your birthday, stole from you, and then tried to make you the villain? Was Emma wrong for getting revenge months later, or did they have it coming? Share your opinion down below. I'd love to read your thoughts. And if you enjoy real-life drama stories, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when a new one drops.